Welcome to 2025. This car is a big deal and shouldn't just be glossed over. Let me explain why.
Welcome to MADinc. We are Perth's leading automotive detailing studio, passionate about all vehicles and sharing our story. Find us on YouTube, Facebook and Instagram, Spotify and Apple Podcasts to learn more. And thanks so much for watching, listening and supporting. We hope you enjoy.
This is the 2025 7th generation S650 Ford Mustang Dark Horse. It has a 5-litre naturally aspirated V8 making 500 horsepower through twin throttle bodies, as well as beefed up internals, which include some forged parts from the previous supercharged GT500 engine. The Dark Horse is not just a styling package, but the new fully spec'd track-focused version of the GT, like the Mach 1 of the previous generation. However, even though it does make more power than the GT, the Dark Horse performance package is more handling focused than anything else. The tyres are the same as what you'll find on some supercars. The suspension is the same as what you'll find on some Ferraris, and the brakes are similar to what's found on some Maseratis, apparently. Dark Horse is not just some made-up marketing term or just a popular Katy Perry song. It's actually a saying you can look up which refers to a competitor that was never expected to do well, but wins. And to fully understand what that means for this car, we need to step back in time and understand this car's history. The first generation Mustang was produced from 1965 to 1973, and don't hate me for saying it, but it wasn't really much more than a marketing stunt. Ford took their first ever compact car, styled the body to look like a Ferrari by giving it a long bonnet, because even though Ford was actually trying to buy out Ferrari at the time, they still wanted a sporty car of their own. They gave it some bucket seats, a floor-mounted gear shift, and just enough power from the engine to be slightly faster than the average economy car of the time. It was a pretend sports car that was designed with no performance-focused parts in mind, but boy, the recipe worked. On the first day alone that the first-gen Mustang was launched, Ford sold more of them than Ferrari sold of all of its models combined for the first 32 years of operation. One day. By the time the Mustang's first model year came to a close at the start of 1966, Ford had already sold 681,000 Mustangs. I saw an insane comparison of this stat online that reiterated that 681,000 cars is more than all of the cars and SUVs that Dodge sold in the US last year combined, plus every vehicle Chrysler sold, plus every vehicle Lincoln sold, plus Buick, plus Cadillac, and those are just the US local manufacturers. It also includes everything sold by Mini, Maserati, Alfa Romeo, Bentley, Fiat, Lamborghini, Ferrari, McLaren and Rolls-Royce last year combined as well. One car, a single model, sold more than all of that, but 60 years ago. The first generation Mustang created the framework that would rocket the car to success, even though underneath it was just a regular passenger car and wasn't a dedicated sports car like how we'd describe one today. This concept continued on throughout the generations of the Mustang. Early concepts of the 4th gen Mustang were front-wheel drive, but they slowly did find themselves leaning closer towards that idea of a dedicated performance car. For the first time ever, in 2015, Ford gave the new 6th generation S550 Mustang its own dedicated platform. It was completely modernised with independent rear suspension for the first time in the Mustang's history. A true performance-focused sports car at last. People criticised the GT for being too soft and quiet, but at least they'd perfected the chassis this time, which meant that by the time the GT350 and then the GT500 came around, the S550 Mustang truly reached legend status amongst fans. The Mustang had always been compared to other sports cars like European BMW M3s, for example, but for the first time, the 760 horsepower Mustang GT500 didn't just outperform M3s, it outperformed Porsche's 911 GT3 RS, a car hailed as the ultimate production track car. So, a true dark horse indeed. A car that started off as a cheeky marketing ploy to sell cool looking coupes with passenger car underpinnings, never expected to amount to much, ending up being one of the best selling cars of all time. Up until the point today where this S650 has just in the last few weeks become one of only 5 production cars ever to set a sub 7-minute Nürburgring lap time. Let's also consider the fact that it's 2025, for goodness sake. How on earth are we still lucky enough to be getting a naturally aspirated V8 with a manual transmission that's rear-wheel drive? Goodness me, if you are in the market for something like this, you must buy one. They will not be around for much longer at all. On a personal note, just for myself, I'm not the biggest fan of American cars, but I had the privilege of driving one of these on the road and it is amazing. I do really apologise because we couldn't film that car, but we can't drive this one because it's unregistered and subject to a factory recall for failure in some of the gauge cluster screens, something that's quite important to see when you're on the road. The driving element of this car and my raw impressions of it is something I would have loved to have captured for you guys, but perhaps that can be another video. In the meantime, stay tuned for a second episode coming out soon, outlining the process of protecting this exact car with XPEL paint protection film. And until then, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.